Welcome to the Fortress of Solitude podcast. I'm your host, Sergio Pereira, and today we've got a very special episode for you. I got the chance to have a chat with The Witcher showrunner Schmidt Hissrich, as well as two of the cast members of the show, Anya Chalotra and Freya Allan, who you might know better as Yennefer and Ciri, two of the real badasses of the show. So yeah, this is a really, really cool episode, and yeah, I hope you really dig it. There's a dive into season 2 and reveal a little bit more of what to expect. So enjoy.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Lauren. Sergio from Fortress of Solitude in South Africa. Now, in the first season, Toss a Coin to a Witcher was undoubtedly a pop culture phenomenon where everyone, even people who didn't watch the show, everyone knew about it. What was the pressure like for season 2? Obviously, trying to come up with something like that. Was it something intentional? We're like, okay, we need Jaskier to come up with something just as massive, or was it just more organic? If it comes, it comes.
There's an organic process to it, which I can say because no one, especially us, expected Toss a Coin to Your Witcher to be as successful as it was. We knew it was an earworm. We knew because we would go to the mix stage when we were mixing sort of the sound and the music, and we would, come in on a Friday morning and everyone would be like, that song was in my head all night since we worked on Thursday. So we knew that we had the possibility of at least having a song that seemed familiar to people. When I started to see just how it resonated with fans, how it's now in Teslas, like you can program your horn in a Tesla to play Toss a Coin to Your Witcher. I mean, that's just nothing that we ever expected. So that being said, looking at season 2, we knew that we wanted Jaskier's music to continue to be an important part of the show, and in fact to elevate that even more. So he has several songs. What I will say though is that the tone of those songs is slightly different because the tone of the season is different and Jaskier's in a very different place. Toss a Coin to Your Witcher was always intended to start as this acoustic song that he's coming up with, and then throughout the end of that episode becomes almost like a rock ballad. And it was supposed to show the sense of Jaskier becoming a kind of a bigger star as the season progresses. In this season, he is much more known in the continent. So he already has a following. He is much more confident in the songs that he is doing. What I will say, my favorite song this season is one called Burn. And it is, I think, the one that probably people are going to remember the most, but is also, I find, a bit heartbreaking, as opposed to Toss a Coin to Your Witcher, which is very celebratory.
Okay, with the Witcher universe expanding with the likes of the Nightmare of the Wolf and all these other little spin-offs, there's an opportunity to kind of tell pockets of stories. Whereas before, like maybe in season 1, some of the stories might have had to have been included. It might have been stuffed into season 1 per se, because you obviously need that backstory to tell what's actually going on. Do you find that now with all the different spin-offs in the Witcher universe is making it a lot easier to just focus now on the current story? Would you say that's a fair statement?
I would absolutely agree with that statement. I think that part of the reason that I really love season 2 and I want everyone to watch season 2 is because we finally settle into the storytelling that I like to do, which is about the characters. We're no longer setting the chessboard. We're no longer trying to make sure that everyone understands what a Witcher is, what a mage is, where Cintra is, how do elves fold into the picture. All of those pieces are kind of set. And now we actually just get to play the game. And I think that viewers will see that in season 2. We'll actually, we have a lot of scenes where two characters are just sitting, getting to know each other better. And we as the audience then get to know the characters better as well. In terms of the various sort of branches of the universe, one of the things that we try to do there is take little moments from the books, things either that we don't have time to explore in the main series, which is what you bring up, or things that even Sapkowski didn't fully explore in the books themselves. Take the spinoff, Blood Origin. I always wanted to understand more about the conjunction of the spheres, specifically what the continent was like before that conjunction, how the conjunction changed it and changed sort of the social dynamics and the racial dynamics and sort of increased the sense of otherness that is really pervasive in the Witcher world. But then also, what were the stepping stones from that moment in time to where we meet Geralt and the other characters that are in this universe. So I felt like that's something that Sapkowski mentions a few times, and we understand is important to the history of the continent, but we don't really explore. He doesn't explore, and we didn't. So it was a great way to sort of dig into that. And same with the anime, actually, which is, we understand, we're given a few sort of details and tidbits about the Battle of Kaer Morhen. But what we don't understand is how necessarily it's emotionally impacted all of our characters. And by placing Nightmare of the Wolf in that world and sort of seeing the destruction and the devastation, by the time we get to season 2 and Geralt takes Ciri to Kaer Morhen, and you see that there are still, cracks in the foundation of the castle. There's still missing pieces. There are still bones in the courtyard. You begin to understand that there is a deep history to this building. And when you meet Vesemir, sort of deep sadness in him, and it just gives that historical perspective. So a long way of saying, yes, I absolutely think that we can tell stories in a more engaging way now, because we don't have to constantly be sort of setting up the environment.
Great, thanks. Then from our side, it's one question I have is Vesemir is obviously a huge character in the Witcher series, and we're obviously going to see him now in season 2. And there's been a lot of debates online with fans. They were like fan casting who Vesemir should be, and we saw all sorts of names, all sorts of people throwing their names into the hat to be chosen. What specifically were you looking for when you cast Vesemir eventually? What was the trait? What sold it? Like that was like, that's our Vesemir.
So I was a huge fan of Kim Bodnia's from Killing Eve. And what I loved about that particular character, and then realizing what Kim brought to that character, was he was a killer. He was a cold-blooded murderer. And yet he kind of also felt like, a grandpa. Like he felt like someone you could, talk to, and truly there was an empathy to him and a deep sort of seated, I would say, sort of paternalistic feeling around him. And that's exactly how I see Vesemir, which is an interesting sort of one-to-one between Killing Eve and The Witcher, because Vesemir has to be capable of violence. And certainly, this is a character that we know puts young boys through the trials of the grasses, knowing that, 7 of the 10 of them could die. And we need to believe that this character is capable of that, and yet also believe that he deeply cares for these boys that eventually he will call his sons, and care about them, their survival in the world after this moment. Kim is one of my absolute favorite people in the world. And he has, I think, a couple of things that add to his portrayal of Vesemir. He has the driest sense of humor. Henry actually also has a very dry sense of humor. And so they together work very well. But there are times at the very beginning working with Kim where he would say something to me and I would just like blink, 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 blink back at him. And then he'd be like, I'm teasing you. You're like, oh, okay, good. Because he presents with such a self-seriousness. And then there's a great twinkle in his eye that you start to learn. And I think he brings that to Vesemir really well. But also there is what's the right word? There is an imperviousness to him. He carries himself with almost a slight barrier between him and other people, which again, I think is super important to Vesemir, because he can care a lot, but there has to be a limit to it. There has to be a time where he stops thinking about sort of the personalities of other and can only think about the survival of the Witchers. And so I could talk about Kim forever and why he is the perfect Vesemir, but I think it is all on screen as well.
Thank you very much. My question is for both Freya and Anya. A lot's been said, obviously, about season 1, where there was a lot of multiple timelines and a lot of different things happening. Did you find that with season 2 being a little bit more linear, that it was easier for you both to follow your characters' arcs a bit better than in season 1?
I mean, for me, I was lucky because season 1, I was the only character that stayed in one timeline.
Yeah, flipping
so
out.
I never had to deal with it, but you...
I had to do it. Yeah, I mean, you just... that on top of, we don't shoot executive order, really. We have 4 different directors. So that on top of everything is a challenge, but the best advice I was ever given by a mentor of mine I had at drama school called Neve Kasak, she said, play the scene. I know it's very simple, but it's hard to forget, like easy to forget rather. You want to play the whole thing, or you want to like pitch a performance there in a certain way so that you have more room here to pitch in a different way. Just play the scene. And then you'll never really get lost, I think.
Yeah, that's what I live by. So
yeah, just play the scene.
Don't get distracted with everything else.
No.
Or
so
an
easy
arc
to
or something, just like
no,
be in the
because if you
moment.
do that, then you literally can't come back.
But also, like, no one in life as well has a character arc. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Like we go through, unexpected. Like it's not how it works. There isn't really a start and an end in life. Like we're just constantly like do. So
Let's see where it goes. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so The Witcher is obviously a very popular video game series that we know about, with The Witcher 3 being the latest around. And I've got to ask this question. Out of all the cast members, who is by far the best Witcher player?
Henry. No.
as in playing
the game.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be Henry, I think.
Yeah, Henry.
Yeah.
Has to be Henry.
Yeah.
He's a total nerd.
He's such a nerd.
So no one else can take him on in The Witcher? No one else?
No. Henry's king of it.
Yeah, loves it. He's a
Great,
bit.
thank you.
It's like a Witcher Bible on set.
He really
he'll be
is.
like, we'll be doing a scene and he'll be like, I think we should use this line from like page 253 from Blood of Elves. And I'm like, how does this dude know all this stuff? I just make me look bad.
It's intimidating. It's intimidating.
Great, thank you. So I had a chat to Lauren a little bit earlier, and she explained how production was shut down after 3 weeks because obviously of COVID, and there were a couple of months between you guys got back on set. How did you find this period, the 5 months, between obviously starting something and going back? Did you find it was more time to, dive deep into your characters, or did you find yourself maybe overthinking a little bit too much about what you were going to do?
For me personally, it was like, I just had started and I was like I'd been waiting for this. I was so excited. And then, so the first start of lockdown, I was really I didn't feel very good because I was kind of like, oh, I just want to work. And I'm now just locked in my house. I mean, as everyone was, but like it was, I wasn't handling that part of it very well. And then as time went on, I began to like appreciate the time with family, and also, I'm actually really grateful in terms of the work element of it all. I'm really grateful that I had that time because I think any time, whether, obviously you were sort of locked up then, but like any bit, part of real life that I get to experience as myself is only going to feed that bank of experience to put into characters. So I'm always kind of grateful in a way for time off from of not working, because it allows you to come back with a fresher mind. And I think, obviously COVID was such a massive thing emotionally and everything for so many people, that I think that definitely like gave you a whole other mind to go into the rest of the season with. So I think in a way I was grateful in terms of the work element.